Let me
Grant
begin
Dalton,
by greeting Grant Dalton, who is the CEO of the Emirates Team New Zealand of the 37th edition of the America's Cup.
With us today. It's a real pleasure, and thank you very much for this little present, which is not so little, by the way. Director General de Deportes, Vicepresidenta de la
General Director for Sports, dear Aurora, Vice President of the Scandian Race, Presidents of Sports Associations, dear champions and ambassadors. Welcome everyone to the sports breakfast of Europa Press that, as you know, we organize with the support of Dalton, Loterías, Caja, amongst others. Today is a big day for us. Honestly, having Grant Dalton with us is a true honor.
Curriculum of yourself, Mr. Dalton, and then I'll pass on the word to you because, take my word, we really are very interested in listening to you, far more than listening to me. However, una pequeña reseña curricular.
However, allow me to share a brief summary of the CV. He is an international person who has had more than 2 decades of experience in transocean regattas, and after 23 he focused on the America's Cup when he was called upon by the Emirates Team New Zealand. And the trophy escaped his hands in Valencia 2007, but in that occasion he won the Louis Vuitton Cup. In 2009 and 2010, the team won 2 championships in the puesto en la Volvo Ocean Race.
En 2012, pese a ganar nuevamente la Louis Vuitton, perdió por la mínima nuevamente contra el Oracle Team de Estados Unidos, la 34ª America's Cup. Entonces, tras un intenso periodo de reconstrucción, en 2017 obtuvieron la importantísima victoria frente a la Oracle, regresando la Copa a las costas de Nueva Zelanda después de 14 años para lo que fue su 36ª edición, que ganaron de nuevo en el año 21. Ahora toca, como todos sabemos, su 37ª edición, que se celebra en Barcelona, donde el Emirates Team New Zealand habrá de defender su copa ante el desafío de los equipos de Estados Unidos, Reino Unido, Italia, Suiza y Francia. Bueno, evidentemente esto va a ser un evento apasionante y nadie mejor que Grant Dalton para contarlo. Así que, por favor, señor Dalton, ocúpate la tribuna. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Buenos días y bienvenidas y bienvenidos a estos Desayunos Deportivos de Europa Press. Hoy nos acompaña, como ha dicho mi presidente, Grant Dalton, una leyenda mundial de la vela y actual CEO de la America's Cup, que se disputará en Barcelona el próximo año. Welcome, Mr. Dalton. Thanks so much for being here in Madrid. And excuse me for speaking in Spanish because my English is terrible. I'm sorry. Gracias, señor Dalton, por elegir este foro como su primer gran evento en Madrid, fuera de Barcelona este año. Como ha dicho mi presidente, para Europa Press, para mí es un gran honor tenerla aquí en estos desayunos deportivos. La Copa América es la competición más importante de este deporte. Está considerada el tercer evento deportivo con mayor impacto económico para el país anfitrión después de los Juegos Olímpicos y del Mundial de Fútbol. ¿Por qué se celebra en Barcelona? ¿Qué alcance tendrá para la ciudad y el país? ¿Cuál es el calendario hasta el próximo año? ¿Cuántos equipos compiten? Ha avanzado ya mi presidente en las nacionalidades. ¿Y por qué no hay un desafío español? ¿Y cuál es el formato de la competición? Estas y otras preguntas son las que vamos a compartir junto al también director general del Team New Zealand, defensor de la Copa de las 100 Guineas en la próxima hora. Saludos a los que nos acompañan en este NH Collection en Madrid, también a los que nos siguen de forma telemática y a través de la web de Europa Press un par de horas antes del tan esperado debate de investidura. Pueden compartir sus preguntas a través de preguntaseventos@europapress y vamos a empezar. Señor Dalton, de nuevo, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Vamos a empezar por la génesis. El anuncio el 29 de marzo del año 2022 de que Barcelona acogería la 37 edición de la Copa América. ¿Por qué Barcelona y no Málaga, Cork, Jeddah o Auckland también?
Two things before I answer that. Firstly, I speak Kiwi, which is a variation of English, so my absolute apologies. And I think it's important to recognise and be humbled by Teresa Sabel here, who's double gold medalist. And I think we talk about diversity a bit as we go through today, because I think it's really important. Why Barcelona? There's three reasons. The first is that the blue economy and sustainability and a commitment to diversity are important pillars of Catalonia and Barcelona and of Spain, but you know that was an attraction. Secondly, it's an easy city to love, and the teams enjoy the city. The conditions are very good to sail, and the people are amazing, and they really are amazing. Third, it's a jewel. Barcelona is one of the most famous cities in the world, and it's certainly the jewel of the Mediterranean. It was tough to decide between Malaga and Barcelona, but in the end, we had to make a decision, and Barcelona just had the bit more X factor. Since making the decision, there is absolutely no doubt it's the best decision we could have ever made for the team and for the event. The people, the support, the collaboration of the Spanish government, the Generalitat, Barcelona Council, Chamber of Commerce, tourism, is amazing. And you know, Teresa knows this is the first time that all the institutions have come together since the '92 Olympics. And that's rare. It's a very long answer. Sorry, that was a long answer.
¿Cómo le trata Barcelona? Porque he leído que dice que cree que está viviendo en Miami, ¿no? Que por las vistas que tiene desde la diagonal.
Yeah, so it seems to me there's really two places you live in Barcelona. Well, you can live up the back, which is lovely. You can live right in the city, or you can live just a little bit up the coast by Port Forum, where you can view the entire race course and watch the boats training when you're not out training yourself. So just for ease of living, we just chose to live up the coast. But I think the point is that all of the teams, not just Team New Zealand, love living in Barcelona. They love the culture, they love the gastronomy, they love the atmosphere, they love the weather, and they all love Spain. You know, as I come back to that point, the decision to come to Barcelona, to Catalonia and to Spain, we never realised how good a decision that was going to be. It's amazing.
Le he leído en alguna entrevista que dijo, precisamente por la elección de Barcelona, que fue un poco comprometida en su país, en Nueva Zelanda, que para salvar la Copa tenían que salir de Nueva Zelanda.
Me personally, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough decision because, I mean, I think it's a known fact that the most gold medals in Spanish Olympic sport is sailing, but the sport is not well known here. In New Zealand, it's probably number 2 sport behind rugby, and we're not very good at that at the moment. So there's a very, very strong fan base. There's a very strong culture of sailing. And there's a very good program of youth to the pinnacle, which is, the America's Cup, and through the Olympic classes. So there's a number of reasons we left. The first is that we have to grow the sport, and as much as we love our country, we're nearly in Antarctica, and it's a long way away from the base of population of Europe, where Barcelona's, very close to hundreds of millions of people. The other problem is that we exist to win. We don't exist to compete. And it was just in the COVID environment, we're a very small country, it was going to be incredibly difficult to form a team that could compete to win. And we made the decision to leave. As I come back to the point, it was absolutely the right decision.
Ha hablado usted de recuperar la unión de las instituciones, del Gobierno de España, tenemos aquí Fernando Molinero, el director general de Deportes, también del Ayuntamiento, de la Generalitat, de la Diputación. Por primera vez, ese uno de los objetivos de la Copa América de Barcelona 2024, recuperar ese legado que dejó Barcelona 92.
Yeah, it's a good point. When we leave, and I'm not sure that's any time soon, if we win, what are we left? What do we leave? Because most sports, they come and they go, and they don't leave anything. So legacy is a really, really important part of what we do. It can be done in a number of ways, but one of the things about the 92 Olympics is that the volunteers was such a huge part of the legacy. And you don't have to be in Spain and Barcelona for very long to realise that the Olympic spirit still lives very strong. So the volunteers are a very important part of what we do, and I think already we've got over 3,000 in our registered, and they were really successful in Villanova. So that's one legacy. The second legacy is to try and promote and help promote sustainability, and we've made a big push into hydrogen, which is very important in Catalonia, because the marine industry, as opposed to the shipping industry, hydrogen to us seems a natural progression rather than fossil fuel, and so we've effectively invented hydrogen chase boats, which do over 100 kilometres an hour, and they're mandated by the teams, for the teams. So you'll only see on TV hydrogen chase boats. So that's a legacy that we can pass on, that IP. And the third is to try and encourage the sport. And through certain sponsors that we're dealing with, we need to try and help a legacy of sailing, of kids sailing, of diversity. I keep coming back to that word diversity because it's an important legacy. Because we won the Cup in 2017. What was our objective after that? Because everything was about winning the Cup. To defend it in our home country, that was an objective. But after you've defended it, what's your mission? I mean, obviously we want to win it for the third time. That's a critical path. But we need to stand for more than just that. And those other pillars of legacy that we will leave behind when we leave, and that might not be for a long time, I hope, are important to us as a team and the individuals within the team.
Después recuperaré esa parte que ha comentado usted de sostenibilidad, de inclusión, porque es la primera vez que va a haber una competición de mujeres también, paralelamente con la competición junior que está patrocinada por Puig. Pero antes quería, como los periodistas buscamos titulares, quería buscar un titular. Si ustedes ganan, ¿van a repetir en Barcelona? Y la segunda parte de la pregunta es, ¿Valencia quiere volver a ser otra vez de la sede de la Copa América? Lo ha dicho su alcaldesa. ¿Valencia también sería una opción?
It's a question that's going to be asked more. We were talking on the way here from Barcelona this morning. This is a question that's going to get asked more and more and more. It's an obvious question, And I think I can only answer it this way, because it would be incorrect for me to sit here and say, absolutely, we're going to do that. Because there's a New Zealand public that that want us back, I think, as well. But the circumstances for us to go back to New Zealand need to be right. And everything if I was to ask the team members of Emirates Team New Zealand today, where would they defend the Cup next time? They would say Barcelona. Two things would happen. You would instantly get more teams. You would get 2 new teams. So you'd be up to 7. Now, right now, the infrastructure of the port can only handle 5, just. So I have no idea where you'd put 2 more teams. So that's a real thing. It's not a sort of we'll find somewhere, because there isn't anywhere. And I also have read what the mayor of Valencia has said. But by the time the Cup is over, if we win, we need to have pretty much a firm decision, rather than this, waiting, maybe, who knows, wait and see. We'd like to start those discussions, properly in about 6 months.
En términos náuticos, se podría decir que Barcelona enseña la popa a Valencia.
It's probably unreasonable to say that at this stage, because we sailed in Valencia in 2007, and I certainly don't want to get into the politics that surrounded the Cup afterwards, but Valencia was a great place to sail, and they did an amazing job as a venue. Now, I know there was issues later, but as a venue, it was amazing. So, it would be unwise and unreasonable to eliminate Valencia.
Lo comentaba al principio en la presentación, la Copa América se considera el tercer gran evento en impacto económico. Hay un estudio que se hizo público, la Fundación Barcelona Capital Náutica, de que la Copa traería 1.200 millones y 19.000 empleos. ¿Qué cifras tiene usted? Si se asemejan, le he leído también que sería incluso más que esa cantidad.
Well, the thing about economic impact reports is, unless you're an economist, you don't understand them. So I'm always slightly sceptical, because that's a lot of money. I can't really judge. I know that has a significant impact. What was the question?
¿Qué cifras maneja usted? Si son esas, en una entrevista le he visto que es más.
Interviews I heard, they have been exceeded already, these figures.
Well, 1.2 billion and 19,000 is the university study. I'm not aware that they've been exceeded, and I would highly doubt it, because we're still a year to go. If those figures are registered at the end of the Cup, then I would say that is a massive success. The figures in New Zealand in 21 can't be used, because the country was shut, literally shut. You couldn't come in, you couldn't leave. So the only people that were at the Cup were people from Auckland, because you couldn't even travel in the country. So there's not really a gauge, current economic gauge of another country or city that you compare to make a comparison.
En Nueva Zelanda, creo recordar, lo tengo aquí en mis anotaciones, 842 millones de impacto y 941 millones de telespectadores. Fueron las cifras que se hicieron públicas.
So I think you're talking about TV figures, right? Yeah. So
y del impacto económico, 842 millones de dólares.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't know the answer. That sounds like a lot of money. Probably. I know that in 2003, which was a very, kind of real, there was no COVID, it was normal, they were around those numbers way back then. So I'm not surprised to hear that. I didn't know that, because every figure is in that is affected by COVID so dramatically. There was no tourism at all.
Los inicios no han sido fáciles. Hemos tenido la primera regata preliminar en Vilanova y la Geltrú y tuvieron una dana, unas condiciones meteorológicas, lo comentábamos en la sala VIP, complicadas, ¿no? Pero salieron bien, excepto el resultado, que quedaron segundos.
You know, the weather in Catalonia and Spain is amazing. And the weather on Friday in Villanova, it rained more than it's rained in 2.5 years. And it picked our first day to do it. And then on Saturday and Sunday, there was very little wind. So I think the regatta was a success, but our show was like having, you know, a rock concert in the rain. It's never quite as good. But the people were amazing. The atmosphere was great. The volunteers made the show. The volunteers, I can't stress that enough. The volunteers are key to the show. And the you know, the feedback from the teams, because it's really important. We exist also for the teams to have a great regatta as well. And the feedback from the teams was amazing as well. So why Villanova happened, I'll sort of go back a step, is that when we made the arrangement with Aurora to bring the Cup to Barcelona, it was really evident really quickly that we needed to do more, that we needed to make a mark quite early, that we needed to start to try and get the press moving, that we needed to start to motivate just outside, more than just Barcelona. And so we made a decision to have a regatta. And we did it with no budget when the decision was made, no time, and I just thought it was a great idea. And it's hard to do that in a few months, right? So you didn't see the full show because we only spent a few months getting ready for it. But it tested, and we learned a lot of lessons that we can apply and adjust for what will become Barcelona next year. And in that respect, I think it was successful for us to put a new team in place, an event team, a whole TV package that was all new technology, and make it work on the day, in the rain.
Me ha gustado la frase de un concierto de rock bajo la lluvia. Ha estado bien. Cuéntenos un poco, para los que no sabemos qué es navegar en un barco hace 75, hace 40, cuál es la diferencia y la sensación que se tiene en uno y otro barco. Hace 40 para las regatas preliminares, hace 75 para la regata final.
Well, the first thing is to realize that we're about 160 people in our team. Only 12 of those people actually go sailing. The rest are engineers, technicians, in all facets, from aerodynamics, hydrodynamics, mechanical engineering, all facets of, if you like, Formula One. And, you know, you only have one driver. Well, we only have 12 yachtsmen in 160 people. So it's sort of almost wrong to think of us as a sailing organisation. We're more like a startup tech company that develops and changes weekly almost. And that's one of the fascinations of the America's Cup, that it's a race of technology. And, you know, there's a line that the America's Cup is already over. It's already over because the technology decisions that you made or decided to pursue a year ago will dictate who wins it. And so if we've taken the right technology decisions, we will. If someone else has, they'll beat us. And really the AC-75 it's somewhere between a boat and an aircraft, because it basically is off the water. And the 40, which is the smaller version, we wanted a boat that could be used in this push we have for diversity, because there's a gap between Olympic and the America's Cup. Now, it's not a skill gap, but it's because we employ gold medalists. That's what you do. but you've got, how do you learn that with, you can't just jump on. So the 40, the smaller boat, and also there's a major issue within our sport, in most sports, not football, obviously in this country, of women participation and having opportunity and having the opportunity to learn. So the AC40 is like a smaller sibling of the AC75. It's like a go-kart, a high-speed go-kart compared to a Formula One car. And that boat, which we invented and we built 12, will be used for the Women in Youth America's Cup as this to give this proper ability to make the step to the next America's Cup.
Tenemos la siguiente regata en Jeddah, ahora en noviembre. ¿Sabe ya si el barco estadounidense va a viajar? ¿Podría tener una sanción si no lo hace?
So the way we wrote that rule, can I go back a step? Because I'm not sure probably it's understood how the America's Cup even works, because it's a really unique event. It's controlled by a deed that was written in 1857. The Cup was won by a yacht called America in 1851. And the deed gives a lot of rights to the holder of the Cup. It's only 2 pages long and literally written in quill pen. But that deed still controls the America's Cup today. And for 170 years, the Americans used that deed to hold on to the America's Cup and made it really difficult for anyone to win. Now, why I tell you that is because what that deed does is it allows the defender to make the rules. So there is no FIA, there is no IRB, there's no FIFA, there's just us. So it's very unique in sport, and that's one of its fascinations. What was the question?
That's it.
Jeddah, that's right.
American
Magic. And the Jeddah. Yeah.
Magic
I'm not dodging the question. So one of the rules that we made was that if a team did not participate in a regatta and we as the organisers had acted reasonably, keyword reasonably, that we could employ sanctions on that team. And the sanctions are specified. So the Americans, citing safety, said we don't want to go to Jeddah. And it's up to us to tell them whether we accept that or not. If we don't accept it, then they will be sanctioned. There's no if or buts. It will happen because it's in the rules. However, we'd like them to come. And the reason we haven't given them a decision is because we're discussing right now with our 2 security firms. They've got a security firm, we've got a security firm, to make sure that they feel comfortable to come. We'd like them to come. But if they don't, and we've acted reasonably, they will be sanctioned.
Vamos a ponernos en el escenario el año que viene, en agosto, tercera regata en Barcelona, ya con los barcos AC75. Creo que todavía se desconoce cuál será el formato, si será toda la flota, un one-to-one. Le dejo que lo anuncien estos desayunos.
It's an interesting question, because the AC40s, we can sail them all together because they're smaller, but it's very unlikely that we would sail the AC75s in a fleet environment. 2 reasons. 1, because it could be dangerous because they're so fast and so big. And 2, we're only a week before the actual start of the Challenger Series, which is match racing. 1 boat against 1 boat. And so it makes sense that you would mimic that in the regatta that you do before it. So it's more than likely that we will run our last pre-regatta in Barcelona 2 weeks after the Olympics in match race form.
Voy a recuperar lo que hablamos al principio, lo que comentaba usted sobre la sostenibilidad. Háganos una fotografía del puerto viejo de Barcelona, el puerto olímpico. ¿Qué se va a encontrar el visitante? ¿Cómo ha cambiado todo eso gracias a la Copa América?
changed thanks to America's Cup?
So one of the things the America's Cup does to cities when it goes there is it doesn't necessarily change the infrastructure, but it does accelerate the infrastructure. And this happened in Olympic Port. That Olympic Port was due to be refurbished, and it was going to be finished by 27, right? And so they've accelerated that, and it'll be finished by July next year, and it'll be amazing. So it'll be kind of back to the glory days that it was in for the 92 Olympics when it was built. And there's a lot of that in the city. With the port, they're accelerating certain things. But our job is to make sure that any visitor from Spain or from anywhere has an experience when they come to Barcelona. So there'll be a big interactive village, and by big I mean 100 metres long. There'll be big TV screens all the way up the beach. The depth, it's very deep in Barcelona, which is a very good quality because we can sail really close to the beach. So you don't have to necessarily go out on the water to watch. So as an event, our mission is to create an environment for Barcelona, for Catalonia, for Spain, and for tourists to be able to experience the America's Cup and understand it a little bit because, we know it's not an easy sport to understand. And there's some statistics, and people always question this. It's the third most watched sport in the world, and that doesn't make sense. You go, third most watched sport in the world, I've never even heard of it. And the reason is because of its length of time that it runs for. So it runs from 2 weeks after the Olympics, so whatever that is, about the 18th of August, all the way through until around the 20th of October. And that's why you get these really big TV numbers and really big visitor numbers because of its length of time. And it also changes or affects the tourist, the type of tourist. So there's some statistics in Barcelona. Cruise going on a cruise boat is only in Barcelona for 4 hours. So that's a big strain on the infrastructure. The average tourist stays between 1 and 2 days, which is still a big strain on the infrastructure. But the average America's Cup tourist stays for 10 days. So it helps to kind of move that dial a little bit in terms of the profile of tourism.
Hablando de acelerar procesos, hablaba usted del Puerto Viejo, de acelerar el proceso de remodelación de la ciudad. También lo comentaba al principio, las embarcaciones van a estar apoyadas por otra embarcación que obligatoriamente, por primera vez, tiene que tener un motor de hidrógeno que va a ser el combustible del futuro. Lo está acelerando la Copa América.
Yeah, so it's always a matter of opinion what the fuel of the future is. In big shipping, could be liquid gas, ammonia, which is derivative of hydrogen anyway. But in small vessels, it seems to us to be hydrogen. And, you ask 3 people, they'll give you 3 answers. So we, because of the speed of these boats, they travel so fast and they need to be supported from medical. And if you think of a Formula One car, how fast they go, and you see the pit wall, and you've got Christian Horner and Toto Wolff, and we cake our pit wall with our boat. So the pit wall travels on the track with the engineers in the chase boats. But those chase boats have to travel at 45, 50 knots to keep up. And they burn up to 2,500 litres of fuel a day because they're running, mathematics, about 1,800 horsepower. So it's just not the right message, and it's just not sustainable. So coming out of the last America's Cup, we said we have to do something. And so we basically invented foiling autonomous chase boats that run on hydrogen. 32 kilos of hydrogen gives us 165 nautical miles. And then imposed it on the other teams. So they also have to build them. So it's just at the top of the sport, it's our way of saying, you know what, this fuel burn is not sustainable in the marine industry. Someone needs to do something about it.
La Copa América de Barcelona va a ser la primera que va a haber una competición femenina. Van a participar 12 barcos, los 6 del America's Cup y otros 6, entre ellos un barco español. ¿Usted no cree en las cuotas? ¿Prefiere una regata exclusivamente de mujeres, por lo que he leído? ¿No cree en las cuotas de la mujer, como en otras regatas como de Ocean Race, que hay cuotas? ¿Usted no cree en las cuotas? ¿Prefiere una competición exclusivamente de mujeres?
Women's competition.
Yeah, so we were having this conversation just before we came in here. No, I don't believe in quotas. It's something, but it just feels that I'm not a woman, right? So it's hard for me to think like that. But I would almost feel that was almost more degrading, to know that I was there because I was part of some quota system. I just can't work out why that's a good idea. And there's so many good women sailors. I mean, they're really good. They're good enough to be sailing an America's Cup boat, because there's certain roles, I mean, that are not the full physical roles that you will see their skill in the Women's America's Cup. So there's absolutely a barrier at the moment for them to make the threshold to America's Cup. And so the Women's America's Cup, which I think will be really successful, and we're really proud that we're the first organisation actually doing it properly. I think it'll be as successful as the America's Cup itself. And one of the key things that we do in the Cup is we're free to air. So we don't go to paid service because it is a bit of a niche sport, and we want to promote the sport. We want to get eyeballs watching our sport, and the Women's America's Cup will be covered live TV, TV3, TVE, and Barcelona TV in Spain. So that's important too, because you don't want to hide it away. It needs to be seen. And I hope Spain wins.
A lo mejor. Hablando del barco español, Guillermo Altadil fue una de las razones por las que la Copa América está en Barcelona, también imagino que Aurora Catá. Con él ganó usted la Vuelta al Mundo en 2001. ¿Le ha contado algo? Desvélenos de los planes de ese barco español que va a competir en la regata femenina.
So, it's an AC40. So what happens is these AC40s, it's sort of good if we had a picture, but they're basically small versions of the race, the big boats, but they're really fast, like 45 knots, like 90 kilometers an hour fast. So they're not toys, right? And so we decided that we needed to mandate that the teams had to build one, so that we could do the regattas, Villanova, Jeddah, Women's America's Cup. And then those boats, they have to then give into a pool. So those 6 boats, 6 America's Cup teams, have to give their 40, put them in a pool, which then we brand up for the Pooch Women's America's Cup. So the Spanish team, and all the other teams for that matter, then train on those boats from July next year, and then we'll race those boats. So they don't have to own a boat, because that gives a much higher threshold financially. And that's at this point what the Spanish team are doing. They will get ready and take one of those boats that are in the pool. However, because they're not toys, we have made every team, youth and women's team, buy a simulator. Now, it's not like a PlayStation Gran Turismo simulator. It's a full immersion, exactly the same controls, the buttons, the wheel. Everything's exactly the same as if you're on the AC40, using exactly the same physics that we used to design the boat. So by the time they come to race and they get in the boat and we let them go and off they go at 90 kilometres an hour, we know that they're safe, we know that they're less likely to cause damage, and we know that they're going to be way more competitive.
Hablaba usted hace unos minutos de que las decisiones que ya se han tomado probablemente van a decidir la regata. ¿Va a ser esta primera Copa América de la inteligencia artificial? Se está hablando de tanto de ChatGPT, de la IA. ¿Será esa primera Copa América de la inteligencia artificial donde desgraciadamente el factor humano influye menos?
So everybody always talks about this kind of, is this the biggest technology America's Cup? In 1851, America, that won the America's Cup, was the highest technology of the day. And each time, the boats in the America's Cup are the highest technology available. In, 1875, 1900. There's always, that's one of the fascinations of the America's Cup. It's the highest technology of the era. 1983, 40 years ago today, I was reminded, when Australia too lifted the cup from the New York Yacht Club, who have been trying to get it back ever since. That was the highest technology. It had a wing keel. It was revolutionary. So it's not a comparative thing to say that it's more than it was, because it is what it is now. In saying that, we use AI a lot because one of the things, if you use the example of trying to beat a computer in chess, a computer chess game. So to make our guys sharp, we have, and it's really difficult to develop because we have so many variables. Within our simulation, we have AI that learns to beat the move of the yachtsman because they've, and so yes, AI is very much part of it. But it's just the technology of today. The key to winning is not the technology of the day. It's trying to work out what the technology is of the future. So you're in the future, like quantum physics, before the next guy. Because if you're in the technology of today, you're already behind, because the other guy is over here. Does that make sense?
Estaba mirando mis notas para recordar el apellido, pero tenemos un ingeniero español en el equipo neozelandés, Arruye Frijola, que viene además de la Fórmula 1. Tenemos presencia española, por lo menos en el que esperemos que sea el campeón de la Copa.
Absolutely you do. I'm having a brain fade. Hoops? Roger Frigola. Roger Frigola. So Roger's been with us for quite a while. Roger is AI, trained in University of Barcelona. Really smart guy. Now, he was with us long. He's been with us for 7 or 8 years, Hoops, right? And he is the guy that develops this, helps develop the AI. He came out of Red Bull, working for Red Bull Formula 1. And we brought him into simulation when we started to work a lot in simulators, and subsequently he sort of runs all our AI. He's super smart, really smart. But that's the level of the guys though. Rogers, travels backwards and forwards to New Zealand and Barcelona. But we have a lot of Rogers at that level of technology.
En Valencia sí que hubo un desafío español, pero en esta edición no va a haber ningún equipo español. ¿Le ha sorprendido ¿Tienen ustedes patrocinadores españoles como Puig, como Estrella Damm, la cervecera, pero no hay un gran patrocinador de la Copa América español? ¿Le ha sorprendido?
So am I surprised there's no Spanish team? Is that the question? So, no, I'm not. And the reason for that is because in the end, you've got to have one individual to start it, and then one individual that either can find the money or has the money himself. And in the past, I think the Spanish team was Pedro Campos. I think he was very involved. And, you need a Pedro Campos to get it going. So until that happens, until there's someone like a Pedro Campos or, someone similar, you won't have a Spanish team, which is a tragedy because you are the most gold medals in Spanish sport is in sailing. So you've got the skill. You should be in it. So we have, as you mentioned, we have Puig, and We have Estrella Damm. We have Coke, which is announced. Coke as in
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, but more particularly as in Catalonia. Yeah. We don't have a Spanish bank. We have an Italian bank, UniCredit. We have some quite exciting announcements soon. Really exciting announcements.
Quedan muchos meses todavía. ¿Podrán anunciar algún gran patrocinador para la regata?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one particular one that will announce soon, which is cool, really cool, really exciting.
¿De qué sector? Ya sé que no me va a decir el nombre, pero...
No.
Vale. ¿Cómo es un lobo de mar, un navegante en los despachos? Le he leído una frase que dice: el secreto del éxito era contratar a gente mucho mejor que tú y que el jefe se ocupe de la filosofía de empresa.
Culture. Yeah, that's exactly right. So that was said to me years ago, because I had this friend, became a friend, who was a very successful CEO, and he always seemed to have time. And he was always relaxed. I'm not a particularly relaxed person, but he was. And I remember saying to him, when I was sort of we're always learning, but I was in my 20s, how do you do this? And he said, I employ better people than me, and then I manage the culture. And I'll always remember that, because I actually think that's true. And a lot of CEOs, certainly in my sport, are worried about employing better people than them, because that puts them under threat. And once you become sort of enough confidence in your own clothes that you're not under threat, you're actually enhancing the company in our case, then everything gets better. And we have often people try and dig into the DNA of Team New Zealand and try and understand how we do it. The simple way we do it is we create a very, very, very strong culture. And that's all we got, is culture and good people, because culture breeds good people.
Estamos acabando ya, quedan 10 minutos, pero le voy a hacer las últimas preguntas. ¿Qué queda en este menos de un año por hacer de preparativos en la Copa América? Y la entrada va a ser gratuita. ¿Qué previsiones de público manejan con las autoridades?
Yeah.
De público allí en Barcelona.
Yeah, so that's an important point, that it's not a paid village. We in the same way that we want the TV is free to air, which is a cost for us, not a profit centre. It costs us a lot to put the TV on, because we don't look for rights fees, or particularly high rights fees. And it's exactly the same in Barcelona, is that we want a free village, that people can, families. Here's the thing. So one of the secrets of success of the sport in New Zealand is that it's been, over years, become a sport of the people. And yes, there is this, rich layer above the top of the sport, which affects the sport in a lot of countries. And so one of our jobs in Spain is to try and break that stereotype of rich people in boats. And you do that by making sure that you create experience for everybody. And Barcelona, just because of its geography, because of the way it's laid out, because of the support of all the hosts, including Spanish government, gives us that opportunity to do that, because we have the funding to do it through our sponsors. So when people come, we want to make sure that we have an experience that's free, exciting, engaging, and they get to learn about the America's Cup and of sailing, because they might not really care about the America's Cup, but they want to, when they leave, have had a good experience.
Democratizar la vela. Es la sensación.
I think, and also, yeah, but also lowering entry level. So through our work, hopefully, we spread through the coast as many small boats as we can, and make sailing schools more accessible, so children can start to sail.
Dos últimas preguntas. ¿Le preocupa que le quite foco mediático, aunque es unas semanas antes, los Juegos Olímpicos? Coinciden año olímpico por el cambio de años de París.
No, I haven't really thought about that. I've thought of it more in terms of tourists. And you can look at that two ways. You can, if you're from New Zealand, just say, you can look at the next year as the once in a lifetime trip, because you can do the Olympics and then you can come to the America's Cup. So perfect. I think that there'll be, a hangover from the Olympics. People are like, but it's the end of holidays and no one wants to go back to work. Everybody's like, oh, Jesus, I've got to go back to work. So after a week at work, they're going to go, right, holiday. And so I hope, press, maybe, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about press. But in terms of people, I think that it's almost perfectly timed, because at the end of this, you got the winter. No one likes winter unless you're a skier. So I think, that people will, I don't think it'll affect the people. I'm not sure about the press.
Bueno, mi compañero Ferran Tuñón, de la redacción de Barcelona, me pregunta varias cuestiones que ya ha respondido sobre qué aprendieron de la regata preliminar, pero sobre eso dice, ¿qué embarcación ve como rival después de haber visto, por ejemplo, al barco estadounidense ganar al resto de rivales como rival para la Copa?
Well, the cliche answer is everybody. Okay, that's the politically correct answer, but it's not right. It's not right at all. We're watching everybody, right? Like, espionage is a key part of the America's Cup, and it's actually quite fun too. I like the look of the Italians, because I think they've learned a lot, and the testing that the things that they're testing make sense. Now, they might make sense to us and actually be wrong, because we might be wrong, but they make sense. I actually like the look of Ineos, who had a terrible regatta in Villanova, just because of some of the things they're testing. Remember, it's a technology race and a sailing event second. Those are the two that I like. I don't know what will happen, but we all know in sport it's never what you expect, right? It's never what you expect. But certainly, if I had to pick a team today and not be unfair to the other teams, that we will race in the final, I would say it would be Luna Rossa. We'll see. The question you need to ask me is who goes home first. That's the question you need to ask me.
El primero, sí, esa es la última pregunta. Pero anterior, la penúltima pregunta, y lo prometo, es ¿cree usted que la Copa América va a dejar una herencia, y hablamos otra vez de legado, mayor, por lo menos para los deportes náuticos, que los Juegos de Barcelona 92?
No. We're not the Olympic Games. It would be wrong to... The way we see it is we're not trying to compare ourselves with the Olympic Games. That would be naive. But what I know is that Barcelona is a city that is on the climb. The people of Barcelona want it to be successful. The people of Barcelona want their city back. And they hang on correctly to that amazing legacy of the Olympic Games. So if we can in some way, in our little way, help that rebirth or that refinding of their spirit, then we will have done our job in that respect. But we're not the Olympic Games. And the Olympic Games still burns very brightly in Barcelona.
Hablando de deseos, piensa, imagina, proyecta ya esa imagen con el quinto trofeo para el Team New Zealand, el tercero consecutivo en octubre del próximo año.
The cliche is I don't know, but we compete to win. We don't compete, I can't. One of the things that's happened in New Zealand before we left is people started to say, you should keep it here so that you can compete. And I don't get the word just compete. I only get the word compete to win. So our success in the team is only judged by whether we win and defend and be the first team to have ever won it 3 times. That's motivating. From an event point of view, it's different. We have to leave legacies that we talked about before. So they're not opposed to each other, but in the America's Cup, we have the team and the event, and they're like that. So it's kind of, we have the sport success and the event success, and you have to look at them separately in that respect.
Bueno, pues ahora sí que cumplo con mi palabra. Muchas gracias, señor Dalton, por esta hora de charla, en la que todos hemos aprendido más cosas de la Copa América, la competición de los casi 175 años de historia, la de los barcos voladores que alcanzan cerca o más de 100 kilómetros por hora, la más sostenible, la más inclusiva, la primera con una competición para mujeres que recuperará el aliento olímpico, y tenemos aquí a Teresa Zabel, una doble campeona olímpica de vela que nos acompaña. Como no hay barco español, señor Dalton, muchos de nosotros nos hemos puesto ya la camiseta del Team New Zealand y espero que gane esa 5ª Copa de las 100 Guineas el próximo año. Muchas gracias, mucha suerte, señor Dalton. Muchas gracias también a la vicepresidenta del comité organizador, a Aurora, a Daniel Ferrando, que está por ahí también, que me ha ayudado a organizar este evento, a mis compañeros de desayunos y a los que nos han acompañado en este hotel Eurobuilding, a los que lo han hecho de forma telemática, y a todos les espero el próximo 19 de octubre, esta vez no me voy a equivocar con la fecha, con la presencia, entre otros, del presidente Javier Tebas, para hablar sobre la lucha en la piratería, contra la piratería audiovisual. Buenos días y buena suerte.
Thank you.